Okay, we'll go to Chair Hansen, Standards and Assessment. Chair Hansen.
Thank you. We'll get situated. We do have a couple of motions for the board. First one is dealing with item 12.5, supplemental core standards. The motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board approve the supplemental core standards as presented.
So the motion before the board is that the committee moves that the board approve the supplemental core standards as presented. Do I have any discussion to that motion? Board Member Earl. Try again, Jenny. Push your mute again.
Oh, sorry. I actually have two motions coming out of those, and I'll let me tell you where those are at. Give me just 1 second. The one is under journalism, 1.5. And there was some discussion. We had some discussion in our board.
Okay, Jenny, wait. Let's get a motion, an amendment on the table.
Yep.
So if somebody could pull up, tell us exactly where you are and what line.
So it's, do you want me to tell you the page? So it's under journalism, and it's the first page, journalism 1.5.
Okay.
And let me make, do you want me to just make the motion then?
Let's make the motion, then we can go back and look if we need to.
Sure. It's the proposed standard would be seeking perspective and variety in the human experience. I don't know if someone has that or wants to type it. I sent it on a little earlier.
You know, it'd be nice if we honestly, if we could see the original motion in comparison to Jenny's amended motion.
I don't know who's running it. Do you want me to give you
I don't
both?
know who's running it either. So
It's me. Sorry, this is Angie Stallings. I just do not, I apologize. I don't have any of the standards up, and I don't have the email from board member Earl.
Okay, I'm copying it right now, and Angie, I'm going to send it to you right now.
So you don't have a copy of the standards? Oh, Dr. Johnson?
I'll drop it in the note page in just like 30 seconds. If board member Earl wants to state hers, and then I'll grab the actual language so you guys can see them back to back.
Is this it right here, Jenny?
That is the one.
Okay.
Oh, I just sent it too. So.
Okay, so this is the original part of the motion, was to understand issues and perspectives that are inclusive of terms of gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and other areas of underrepresentation. And you want your amendment to be?
Seeking, okay, I'll read it off, but I think Angie might have it now too. Seeking perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural differences in approach and treatment.
Okay, so the amendment to the motion is to replace this one piece is on 1.5 is seeking perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural differences in approach and treatment. Dr. Thronson, did you have a question on this again, or you're just there? Okay. All right, so that is the amendment. I would be seeking a second on that.
I'll second, Moss.
Thank you. Any discussion to this motion? Oh, first, Jenny, do you want to speak to this motion?
Yeah, just one second. Let me pull up. I have just some notes here. Just a couple of things. I've looked at actually including the law because we're not, there's other things that could be included in here, like religion and probably some other areas as well. So we could just cite a law. In some ways, I felt like that was kind of cold for journalism. And the reason why I went this direction was to seek perspective and a variety in human experience instead of just certain categories of people that we're focusing more on the individual and their cultural differences, just in the way they approach things and in their treatment. And so I felt like this created a more inclusive and a broader narrative for journalist students that were that we're looking more at the human experience from various cultures and various elements. And I feel like sometimes underrepresentation, while that could include this, it also seems to be narrow and very historically grouping of people. So anyways, I just felt like this created more of an individual humanistic experience with individuals. So that's why I went towards changing that language up a little bit.
Thank you, Board Member Earl. Board Member Lear?
Yes, I had a question maybe for Director Thronson. Are these standards developed by, I have a journalism minor. My undergraduate minor was journalism, and I thought that was pretty old school language. I wasn't sure if they use that anymore, but I'm familiar with this, and I'm also interested in who develops these standards. If they are literally people who teach journalism in schools, work with student newspapers, those are kind of out of date, but school media presentations and communications, who develops the standards? Jennifer, if you would.
Absolutely. So for all of the
Wait just a minute, Jennifer. Board Member Lear, I just wanted to tell you something that I actually appreciate the old-fashioned words. I know exactly what you're talking about. So Dr. Thronson, go ahead.
Thank you. I apologize. Yes, so for all of the course standards that we are developing, they are teachers who teach these courses. So these would have been journalism teachers and what they're kind of currently doing in their coursework and putting those into these standards, since we didn't have standards for these courses that we are required to have by law. So that is definitely the source of the standards, is teachers actually teaching these classes currently at this time.
And having said that, if I can continue, Vice
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Having said that, I respect that expertise, that background, the fact that they're developing these standards based on what happens in classrooms. And I would be reluctant, even as a journalism minor who did teach journalism for 5 years and enjoyed it so much. But I would be reluctant to change the language that the actual practitioners thought was most reflective of what journalism students should use. I don't object necessarily to Member Earl's language. I just think this language is cleaner, more specific, and comes from the practitioners themselves.
Dr. Thronson, I have a follow-up question on that, please. Do you see that this change makes any change in what and how they can teach in their journalism class?
So I think it doesn't represent all of the groups in the previous standard. It gets to culture, and those other areas are not articulated in culture. So when we talk about culture, gender is not culture. Depending on how culture is defined, sexual orientation is not culture. So it seems to be less inclusive and a little more granular in the way that this has been changed.
So I have a follow-up to that. Are we also missing some places of underrepresented, there's no such word as that, is it? Underrepresented areas. So for example, today we had the Navajos speak to us. We don't have anything in here. We do about race, but we don't have about language or religion. So are we limiting by not putting everything as well? Are there any words that could encapsulate some of these other areas?
Yeah, I think other areas that you'll see after the "and" is how we're kind of articulating, without calling out every particular group, is that flexibility of what the other is. So Native Americans could be in there, or as I think I've been coached by Dr. Foster, American Indians could be in there, and other groups that within your context too, that may not be a typical group that you might see, but within your community, it makes sense to have discussions around. And the journalism also had people from like higher education on this group that teach journalism and what that expectation kind of looks like in the college setting as they were working with the teachers at the high school level.
Well, I'm kind of beyond the college. I get mad at them most of the time. So, but I also, this seems like we're only going underrepresented areas. sometimes we forget that the highly represented we're very quiet on them. Anyway, I'll move on. I think that it was Board Member Hanson who was next.
I just had a quick question for Jennifer Thronson, if that's okay, Vice Chair.
Go ahead.
These standards went through a public comment process, is that right? Was there any public comment in this particular area?
I'm gonna, if you don't mind, pass the baton to Naomi Watkins. She is the specialist over this and was the one who led the group and collected that public feedback. There was a little, and she can articulate if there the themes that came out of that feedback.
Thank you. Diane?
It's Naomi Watkins.
Oh, I thought you said Diane. Sorry, Naomi. You're on mute. No, we can't hear you. It shows you're off mute, but we can't hear you.
The documentation is in the board backup of what the feedback was for each course that we've submitted. So if you look for the journalism, there is a second one that's the feed. It's actually probably in the journalism. If you scroll through the standards, I think it's at the end with the feedback we got from the community and what changes were made based on that feedback.
Thank you. Naomi, you want to try one more time? Nope, she's given it up. Sorry, Naomi. Okay, I think, let me just see. I've got to look who is next. I think it was, I've got it in order here. It's, let me see. Did Board Member Straight, do you have your hand up? No. Okay, so, well, wait, now I don't have any hands up. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Board Member Hart.
No, actually, it was Board Member Moss.
Well, I skipped him already, so.
Oh, wait, go ahead.
I really, can you go back to the, oh, wait, we're looking at this feedback now. Okay. That's fantastic. But I wanted to go back to the options. I really do like that phrase, variety in the human experience. And I do think that that phrase is very inclusive of all of those things, including underrepresented groups, and I guess for argument's sake, overrepresented groups. I do think the variety in human experience, I love that phrase. And I think that's what journalism, that's what makes good journalism. I get a little lost with the approach and treatment, differences in approach and treatment. I guess I was wondering if Board Member Earl could speak to that a little bit, how that kind of relates to the, I see more of a disconnect between the original and the recommended. And I just want to see how they kind of say the same thing, but actually with more inclusive language because of that variety in human experience phrase. Does that make sense?
Sure. In looking at this, I was looking for something that allowed that difference in the way that a journalist would actually approach or treat different, just that the variety or the differences in human nature. And so just that we are acknowledging the perspectives and the differences of people, even in the way maybe they're reported on or the way you engage with them as a journalist, which is important. Part of my concern, even with the original one, was the idea that they're going to understand the perspectives of people. I don't know that we can adequately understand perspectives of people. We can report on them, we can gather information, but that I had a concern with that. And so this was looking at the approach was looking at those differences, but maybe not being able to fully understand, but being able to relate to, if that makes sense.
Follow up.
Okay, so Board Member Hart, did you want to make an amendment or?
So as an educator, I'm trying to look at this as a teacher. And so what I'm seeing is that I would evaluate whether or not students have met the standard by whether or not they sought out a variety of perspectives well, from a variety of people, of human experiences. And that to me is way more measurable than whether or not I could grade a student based on their understanding of issues and perspectives. So in that way, I can say to a student, did you seek out a variety of perspectives? And so I am inclined to believe that this is a more, it is a standard that's actionable for teachers, more so than understanding issues and perspectives. I also don't like categories, and there will be other categories added or names and nomenclature changed. So I really do, I'm thinking out loud here, but I really do like some of the things that offers. I guess I do not have, I'm still worried about approach and treatment. I don't necessarily know if I like treatment in a standard, but anyway.
So, Board
I'm
Member
just-
Target, so if you're going to take out cultural and approach and treatment, no?
No,
Okay,
I'm,
all right.
I
So you
want
don't
to
have anything.
respect cultural differences, period. I
So
don't,
is that your amendment to her amendment?
I am just moving the conversation forward. I'm not prepared to make an amendment.
Okay, okay, Board Member
Yeah.
Moss.
Is that me?
That's you, Jim.
Thanks. I was just going to speak in favor of the approach of the amendment. I think when we get into checklists, it becomes difficult when we're grading students on a standard. We already heard just in this discussion, a couple of issues. Was this left off? Was religion in there? You know, I think as a journalist, and I'm not one, I'm an attorney, but I think we're trying to encourage broad open-mindedness and fairness and a broadening of perspective that is great for any student, and a more kind of comprehensive openness to the variety of human experience captures that better than trying to see if they follow a checklist of certain categories. So I'm not sure of the perfect language there, but I certainly think that approach is more likely to engender a broadening of perspectives rather than a narrowing to certain categories.
Thank you, Board Member Moss. Board Member, Vice Chair Davis.
Thank you. I have an amendment to the amendment.
Thank you.
It would read, seeks perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural and ability differences. I'll read it again for those who are writing. Seeks perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural and ability differences.
Okay, I think we've got it. Is that correct there, Vice Chair Davis, that was written there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is the amendment to the amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Hart. So the amendment to the amendment is seeks perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural and ability differences. Do I have any discussion to that? I still have two hands up. Do I have any discussion to that? I'm assuming that the only new hand, oh, did you want to speak to that? Oh, Board Member Davis is gone. Board Member Hanson.
Yes, I do.
Okay, Board Member Davis, sorry.
Well, I think this is just a little bit broader. It's can include more of, I think, what we're talking about here. And ultimately, we're asking students to look at a variety of perspectives and respect that there is variety in the human experience, and to respect differences. I also, the approach and treatment is nebulous to me, and that's why I took it out. Because that could be a whole nother subset, a whole different standard in my opinion, I think it convolutes the whole thing. That's why I did this.
Thank you, Vice Chair Davis. Board Member Hanson?
Thanks. As I look at this, I just want to remember that this is number 1.5 under the heading of number 1, which is, strand 1, students will apply knowledge of law and ethics related to the functioning of a free and independent press and various media platforms. So that's the world that we're working in when we specify this. I would not be against some amendment, but I wonder, and I know we're dealing with this one right now, so I'll just put something out there that's not, I don't think we can amend twice, but something like understands issues and perspectives that are inclusive of the variety, what was the wording that we have here? Of the variety of the full variety of the human experience, including gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and other areas. And we wouldn't even have to put underrepresentation, just other areas. But something like that might be more fitting for the space we're operating in.
Okay, Chair Hanson, we can't, yeah, because you're
We
chairing.
can't do another amendment, so I'm just throwing that out
No, we
there
already
as we
have
vote
2
on this one.
amendments to the
Maybe
amendment.
we can keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to vote on the amendment, which is seeks perspective and variety in the human. Oh, wait, who was the second on this?
Molly Hart.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't remember. And a variety in the human experience while respecting cultural and ability differences. Please vote on this amendment to the amendment. Board Member Hanson. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, the voting is, I think, oh, wait, I had 1 no by
Beer and Norton are no's.
Bear and Norton. Okay, thank you. All right, so now we're back to the, I'm not sure where I'm going now, Lorraine. So now I'm going to, this is the amendment. And the amendment, now we're voting on, Lorraine, where am I going? Help me.
Okay, you're voting on the amendment as amended with the
Okay.
language you just passed.
Okay, so we vote again. Okay, that's why I'm getting so confused.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're now voting on the amendment, the amended amendment, 1.56 perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural and ability differences. Please vote.
You have a hand up, I think, before that.
I think he's left it up, actually.
Oh, I thought that just went up, sorry.
Oh, you
No,
do
I
have
raised my
one?
hand. Don't we get to speak before we vote here? Or no?
Yes, you would have a discussion at this point.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I'll go back to Scott. I apologize, everyone, for my inabilities. So Board Member Hanson, I thought your hand was still up.
Oh, no, I took it down this time and raised it up again.
What's wrong with you? Just
Not that I haven't misled you in the past.
Kind of perspective in the human experience. for you.
Now I would like to make a motion to amend. And I would amend to say, and if we can, on that screen, let me see. Understands issues and perspectives that are inclusive of the full variety of the human experience, including gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and other areas.
Sorry, Board Member Hanson, could you kind of sped up there at the end? I was trying to type quickly. Can you see if that's the way you wanted it, or what, did I miss something?
Yeah,
It's in blue here, while no, it's so inclusively human, that are
Yeah.
inclusive of the full variety of the human experience, including gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and other areas,
period.
period.
Okay, is that it? Is that
No.
correct, Scott?
no. You've got to get rid of underrepresentation.
And just other areas, period.
Is that correct, Scott?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the amendment to the amended motion is understands issues and perspectives that are inclusive of the full variety of the human experience, including gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and other areas. Do we have any discussion to this amendment? Board Member Lear. Oh, do you want to speak to that, Scott?
Yeah, I'm going to make you follow the rules. Do I get to speak to my amendment? I think that we're talking about journalism students, and they need to be able to look at things not just from their individual perspective, but also the perspective of others who may be involved or affected by various issues. And I think that not listing some of these items that are here, which are currently items that are in the news, I think would be doing our kids a disservice. Now, does this need to be updated the next time we go through standards? Maybe there'll be other issues that come up, but these are the issues that are that journalism students are writing about. So I think that we can honor the work that went into putting the standard together, but also expand that to not be exclusive to just those items that were listed by doing something like this. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Hanson. Board Member Lear.
I can support this. I think this is much better. I think the other motion took 1.5 out of the context of the other standards. And I think viewing this as part of that standard is a much more accurate and an accurate statement of what journalism students are striving to do. And I think and other areas certainly takes in all any other concern that a writer might have, including religion. These are the basic areas that the law, which is kind of the perspective of this standard, these are the areas that are most not only in the news, but they're also areas of most legal concern for journalists and others, policymakers.
Thank
So
you.
I very much support this, and I like the additional beginning that it updates, I think, the old standard. Or the old.
Thank you, Board Member Lear. Board Member Earl.
Sorry, take me a minute to get my thing here. My concern is, and it's the categorizing and grouping of people. And I realize there's a lot in journalism that is centered around these items right now, but it's the categorizing and the grouping of people according to categories instead of just that full variety of the human experience. I think we're missing a lot of things in journalism currently because we are hyper focused on grouping people instead of humanity. So, and I can't see, is my original motion below this? I don't know.
No, it will be above it.
Okay, or above it. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Vice Chair Davis.
Is it possible to amend this amendment or no? Where are we in the order of things?
I think we can amend.
We went back to the main motion.
Lorraine, we are on amending an amended motion.
No,
We've done it
you're
once.
you're on amending the amendment, and so you cannot add another one.
Okay, thank you.
We might be able to do one without objection, I guess, Cindy, if I knew what it was.
Well, and the chair's got to accept it too.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to add religion and ability, sexual orientation, religion, ability, and other areas. But really, I mean, why not politics? Why not? I mean, there's so many things that should be added in there. So I don't know. It seems narrower than it should be.
Chair, can I speak out of turn?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to go in order. So if you want to raise your hand, you can. Jenny, you have your hand up, and so do you, Vice Chair. Board Member Moss.
Am I up next or after?
No, you're up.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just think it's important to remember these are standards, and standards are used to hold people accountable. And I just think it's problematic to have checklists that might be used to say, well, you didn't pay attention to this, or you didn't reach that one, or create the issue that, well, where's religion? I just think, again, that when we're talking about standards, we should have general principles and leave some flexibility. Certainly, I think any journalist ought to be aware of the issues out there with respect to gender, race, ethnicity. But putting that in a standard that's that prescriptive, to me, is troubling. That's why I prefer the more broad-minded universal statements. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Moss. Chair Hansen.
Thanks. I impatiently waited my turn. I think that we're operating again under number 1.5, which is students will apply knowledge of the law and ethics related to, and these are the areas that the law impacts the most. I would be certainly not opposed to adding religion to that and ability, because both of those are also heavily litigated areas, but journalism students should be aware of where those laws impact what they're doing. So I believe, and again, I don't like to be too prescriptive in these things, but for a standard, if they're not aware of these areas, they are going to get into trouble as a journalist. So that would be my point. And I would certainly add, religion and disability or ability, because those are heavily litigated areas where journalism students could get into trouble. That's my piece. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. I just wanted to make one comment that I actually really appreciate the word seeks perspective. I don't know that we can understand their perspective, so I really appreciate that. So I'm probably not going to vote for this amendment, but I just wanted to bring that out. Board Member Earl, do you have something new to add?
Yes, on journalism 1.2, it does have analyze laws, ethics, and landmark cases specific to journalism, which would cover the very thing that those key cases that you're referring to, and those most current cases. Hopefully, if they're a good, if the teacher is, trying to stay right abreast of things, it would cover that. So I think it is covered in this area. I don't think it's lacking.
Thank you. Are you done? Your hand's still up. Okay. So we're voting on the amendment to the amended amendment. I don't know if I'm saying it right, Lorraine, but what, Lorraine, teach me.
No, that's fine. Or just say the amendment to the, amendment is fine.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Miss Janet, do you have something new to add?
Well, listening to the conversation, I very much liked what Cindy had to add to this, and it seemed like the maker of the amendment was amenable to it. I'm wondering if he might be willing to add ability and religion to his list.
Well, I think that would take another amendment. At this time, we can't have another amendment because it belongs to the body. Miss Lorraine,
if the chair will permit it, I would be amenable to adding those two.
I think the chair has some discretion, doesn't she?
I would go back to Cindy, because Cindy brought that up, and she also said, well, what about politics and what about other things? So is that where you want to limit this? Cindy, was that your discussion?
Sorry, I kind of like the broader other one, but
okay.
One is going to pass. I mean, I would like to have at least a couple more broad areas in there.
Lorraine, if you can help me as our parliamentarian, can we not vote on this? And if it passes, then someone could amend it again. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to stay with the amendment that as it was written, which is understands issues and perspectives that are inclusive of the full variety of the human experience, including gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and other areas. Please vote. Oh, I think we're just going to have to do a roll call vote. I think that there's just too many. I can't keep track. Oh, I gotta find my correct paper. Hold on. Oh, here it is. Okay. Board Member Booth,
Yes.
Cannon? No, Board Member Cannon?
No, because you won't include the areas I wanted.
Two. Board Member Klein?
No.
Vice Chair Davis?
No.
Board Member Earl?
No.
Board Member Hanson?
Yes.
Board Member Hart?
No.
Board Member, Chair Huntsman?
No.
Board Member Hymas?
No.
Board Member Lear?
Yes.
Board Member Moss?
No.
Board Member Norton?
Turn right onto the I-84
No.
West ramp.
Board Member Straight?
No.
Board Member Hutchings?
No.
Continue
So-
for half a mile.
Lorraine, I'm thinking that didn't pass, and I'm a no. That did not pass, right?
Correct, that did not carry.
Okay, so we are back to the amended motion.
In a quarter mile, merge
The
onto
amended, yeah, and the amended motion, which is seeks perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural, wait. Something happened here. While respecting cultural and ability differences. Is that it? Because I lost it. It was Vice Chair Davis's.
I apologize, Vice Chair Belknap. I just moved it so we could show that it was the final motion as amended, as opposed to being
Thank you.
amended by different people. And now this is the final motion if you
Yes,
wanted to vote on that motion.
yes. Okay, thank you. So I just read the motion again. So Vice Chair Davis,
Is it possible to amend this? Or no?
no, we're done. No, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay. I'd like to include. It's going to be almost the same. Can you go back up to the wording of my first one? It would say understands issues and perspective. No. Seeks perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural ability and gender differences.
Cultural, comma, ability, comma, and gender differences. Do I have a second to that amendment?
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll take Board Member Lears on that one. Okay, do we have any discussion to this amendment? Board Member Lear?
I like this better. I feel like in trying to offend no one, we give no direction to these students. In trying to say that we want to provide insight into the human experience, that gives no direction. As I feel like, having been a journalist, having almost pursued that direction instead of teaching, I think that this gives direction about what students need to understand and learn, and it gives them substance. Did we not include some? Possibly. Does it group people? Possibly. But at least gives substantive direction. It's not just a feel-good statement. I really appreciate that it has some substance to it. And I can live with the gentler language that member, whoever she is, member Cindy adds to that.
Okay, and I was out of line again. Vice Chair Davis, do you want to speak to your?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I did that, Carol, not you.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Hart?
I just want to kind of point out that what a standard is and what it does. Standards, and everybody knows, I just think it would help with this discussion. We're not creating any sort of statement here or vision. What we are is we're trying to establish a criteria that a student, that guides a teacher and guides a student in learning about something. And so I understand we're trying to, provide maybe some specificity, but you are giving teachers almost a directive on what to do in their classroom. So by pointing out these specific cultural, ability, and gender differences, you're really putting them in it. It's not as helpful as you might think it would be, because when you leave it a little bit more broad, the teacher can consider what he or she is comfortable teaching, consider the needs of the student that are in the class, consider what's going on in the world around them at that time. When teachers look over these standards and create lesson plans, and then create assessments from them directly. And I don't want to lose that perspective as we try to hammer out something that's appropriate, something that, don't ask teachers to do something that then when they do it, you're going to be upset with them for doing it. And so really, do you want teachers talking about gender differences in the classroom? Is that what you're wanting to do? I just want us to remember what a standard does and make sure that that is what we're intending to do. From a teacher perspective, from a principal perspective, I'm not sure that we don't want to allow a teacher to consider, using their professionalism, what kind of variety of the human experience, what level they're discussing in their classroom. That's just trying to add another perspective.
Thank you, Molly. Board Member Hart. Let's just see. Cindy, you still have your hand up. Did you have it up for a reason? And Board Member Earl.
Yes, I do.
Board Member Earl, are you okay? Oh, Cindy, go ahead.
Yeah, I do understand that. It's great points about the standards. I just want to point out that this particular standard is not asking students to seek cultural ability and gender differences. It's asking them in the general sense to seek perspective and variety in the human experience, and maybe write about some stuff that is different than their box that they live in every day. But while they're doing it, they should be respectful of cultural ability and gender differences. And when you think about problems that we hear from parents and things like that, typically if kids are going to not be respectful, it's going to fall into one of those three categories. So again, this isn't trying in any way to have a teacher be responsible to go out and teach everything about cultural ability and gender differences. That would just be too much to ask. It's just saying, seek out some perspective that's different than your own, and while you're doing it, be respectful of these general areas that sometimes we aren't.
Thank you, Vice Chair Davis. Board Member Earl.
Did Director Thronson have something or not? She not, okay.
Dr. Thronson, are you okay?
I just wanted her. I think I think that we're adding other categories once again, instead of keeping it cultural hits on so many areas, that I think it's broad enough to address those key issues and ability as well. And then we keep adding to that. I don't know. I think the variety in human experience allows that to take place. Once again, I think we're careful we're categorizing again.
Okay, Board Member Klein.
No, I was just kind of thinking on the same line. And yet I don't know why we couldn't just put while respecting differences, because that covers them all. That would be my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Thank you, Board Member Klein. Chair Huntsman?
Thank you, Chair. A question, or maybe even a concern I have, and this might be a question for Dr. Thronston here. As amendments and this passes, can you brief the board on next steps? And one of my concerns is this had a public comment period and all of that. And I went to those because I value them. And now this seems like it's a whole new twist from that. Will there be, what are the next steps and their additional opportunity for public comment?
So the public comment period is finished. As you saw, as we were showing it, the public was satisfied. We had small participation, but they thought we were on point. I think if we want to close this conversation, I might propose that just seeks perspective and a variety in the human experience and leave it there. That gets at what we're trying to accomplish without having to define the categories that we need to consider. That would be bold again of me, but I would suggest shrinking it down. I think for our journalist teachers, it gives them enough without us getting so descriptive.
Okay, thank you, Chair, for allowing her to answer my question.
Thank you. I think we'll need to vote on this, and if it doesn't pass, then we can move to the next amendment. So the amendment on the table is seeks perspective and variety in the human experience while representing cultural ability and gender differences. Please vote. Okay, I see 3 yes votes. Board Member Norton, Board Member Davis, and Board Member Lear. Did I miss anybody?
I was a yes vote.
I'm sorry, Chair Huntsman.
And Scott, for Scott.
I was a yes vote. This is Brent.
Oh my gosh, I can't see them all. Okay, so the yes votes are Board Member Straight, Board Chair Huntsman, Board Member Lear, Board Member Norton, and Board Member Davis. Have I missed anyone?
I don't know. Can I listen while I'm...
Brent, you're on speaker.
Is it an edit?
Okay. All right, so that does not pass. So we are back to the amended motion, which is seeks perspective and variety in the human experience while respecting cultural and ability differences. Do we have any amendment to that amendment?
I would make an amendment.
Raise your hand, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
There you go.
Board Member Klein.
Yes, I would move to amend the motion so that it says seeks perspective and a variety in the human experience.
And a variety or variety?
And variety in the human experience.
Would you like to, do we have a second to that?
I'll second Moss.
Thank you, Board Member Moss. Do you want to speak to that?
No, I think it covers it.
Thank you. Okay, and I don't see any more discussion. So the amendment is seeks perspective and variety in the human experience. Please vote. Okay, this is what I see as no votes. Board Member Cannon, Board Member Lear, Board Member Hanson, Board Member Huntsman, Board Member Norton. Did I miss any on the no votes? Okay, then that motion passes. So now that motion becomes the motion on the table. So the motion is to, on 1.5, seeks perspective and variety in the human experience. Please vote.
And you're voting on the motion as amended.
As amended, thank you.
The amendment as amended is what you're voting on, the amendment still.
Okay, amendment to the amendment. Let's try all over again. The amendment to the amendment
No,
is.
just the amendment. Is the motion, is the amendment as amended? Sorry.
Okay, the amendment as amended would be seeks perspective and variety in the human experience. Please vote. I see one no vote. That would be Board Member Lear. Now we're voting on the motion, correct, Lorraine?
Yes, the
amended-
motion as amended.
The amended motion. The amended motion would be that the board amend, that under standard 1.5 is as follows: seeks perspective and a variety in the human experience on 1.5. Board Member Earl?
I just want to make sure I'm, okay, my question is, sorry, spit it out. This isn't on accepting all of the standards, right? This is just on this final one?
Is that correct, Miss Lorraine?
Because I have one other motion.
You're right, we shouldn't, yeah.
We don't go yet.
Well, you could, but if she's got another amendment,
No,
then
she does have another amendment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I hope it won't be as controversial.
Okay, Board
Time
Member
consuming.
Earl, you have an amendment.
I do, and there it is right there. My amendment is to strike environmental justice and. So this is under sustainability. Oh, sorry, to strike environmental justice and.
Do we have a second to that amendment? Give us just a minute to read it, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, and you've got a drop down we can't see.
could I just ask, is this still in the journalism or another one?
No, it's in its science one. Does that need to
Okay,
be?
yeah, we need to know that, which core standard you're in.
Yes, it's environmental science.
Education needs to be, the spelling needs to be fixed.
Okay, do I have a second to this amendment?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Board Member Klein. Board Member Earl, do you have a discussion to this?
Yes, just on the research behind environmental justice, it doesn't take much to go through. It's more of a political movement, and I know that there's some, a variety of organizations behind it. But I really feel like the sustainable practices in this area are what we should be focusing on and not getting into these political issues. If you just pull up this term or concept, you can see that it's highly politicized. And beyond that, the environmental justice leans into private property issues with people. And so that's why I'm asking to have this removed.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any more discussion. I do have one. I'd like to make an amendment to this amendment to have it read, emphasize the role of environmental and sustainable practices, and just take out justice and. or environment, just take out justice.
Chair, you'll need to have someone else make that amendment.
Okay, someone else. Okay, no, maybe no one's going to make it then. Okay, I apologize.
I'll make that amendment.
Okay.
I'll second that. Board Member Cannon.
I even raised my hand.
I know it just got thrown in there. I'm sorry. So that was Board Member Straight and Board Member Cannon. And so it would keep environmental, but just take out justice.
Would I like to speak to that?
Yes, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I think that's a reasonable change that takes a lot of the political fire out of it and that still maintains the integrity of the course.
Okay, I think we need to keep the word "and" in there, Angie, and just take out justice. Okay, Board Member Lear?
I'm not sure, maybe I'm not into the buzzwords like some other people are, but environmental and sustainable practices, I understand. I didn't know there was such a thing as environmental justice. So I support the change.
Thank you, Board Member Lear. Board Member Moss?
I apologize. This might be an improper amendment. I just wondered if the language environmentally sustainable practices is more grammatic and captures what we're talking about. Environmental practices. I'm
Amen.
just not sure what that means.
Was that what you were going to say, Miss Molly?
Yeah, the grammatically is environmental an adjective, or are we talking about environmental and sustainable practices or environmentally sustainable?
I think well, Board Member Straight, what were you thinking?
You tell me. Anyway, you know, if it improves it grammatically, I think that's fine. I'd like to keep the intent.
Okay, so without objection, we will change this to be grammatically correct to what Board Member Straight's motion was.
Vice Chair Brown, you have staff with a hand raised. I don't.
Okay.
Before you move to a vote.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. But Board Member Cannon, are you okay with that correction too? Because you made the second.
I am all in favor of correct grammar.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Thronson?
Yes, Ricky Scott is here if you would like to get the science perspective, but it sounds like to have environmental and sustainable, the way that it's being verbalized now is just redundant. So sustainable practices include environmental practices. So you could just leave it at sustainable practices. But Ricky would be happy to speak more if you'd like.
Okay, it's already been made as an amendment. And so we'd have to either vote it down or we have to keep it. So we'd have to do one or the other. So in removing Board Member Earls could be environmental justice and be taken out, and you're saying that would be appropriate. Ricky, would you agree with that that's still appropriate?
Yeah, Ricky Scott, science, teaching and learning. Yeah, I guess my concern was when at the time when it did read environmental and sustainable practices, those were pretty much synonymous. But environmentally sustainable, that actually adds clarity. So I appreciate that.
Okay, so the amendment is accurate. Okay, Miss Lorraine?
Yeah, actually, you're making, all you're voting on now or looking at is just removing the word justice. So the grammatical part is not part of this amendment.
Can we not correct it if there's grammatical
Yeah, but just correct it after you just make this, you remove justice. That's the only thing you're doing is removing
Okay,
justice amendment.
thank you. And then we
you
can
go back,
grammatically
amend it,
correct.
then change it, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lorraine. Board Member Moss? Board Member Hart?
No, I was just wondering if there's other types. I mean, environmentally sustainable would be specific as long as there's other types of sustainability. If there's no other type of sustainability, then that word can stand on its own. But Lorraine's right, so I'll be quiet.
Okay, thank you. Miss, sorry, Board Member Earl.
I this feels like it, and maybe I'm wrong, it kind of changes it to me because it is very specific now. It's not just sustainable. Maybe someone could speak to that. The sustainable practices is one thing, but then environmentally sustainable practices, I'm just trying to understand. That seems like it's a very specific thing. Someone could help clarify that. That is like a grouping. Does that make sense? And not a broad sustainability. Is that accurate?
You're probably right. Ricky, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, for sure. I think you have a really good point, Board Member Earl, and Board Member Hart as well. There's a lot more sustainability we talk about than simply environmental. So in the environmental science standards, just to be really clear, we're not talking about ecology, which is interactions of living things. Environmental science is really the study of the resources and the energy that exists on our planet and how we as humans obtain them, use them, and the effects of those things, and also the sustainability, the management of those things. So I do agree that I'll add that in our first draft of this, before it went out to kind of a early teacher review, it didn't have the word environmental justice. It was simply sustainable. And then we had several of our teachers who also were environmental scientists who said that environmental justice is now a thing that's taught in almost all college courses in regards to, like, these are the two tenets in regards to the sustainability practices. So that's why it was added. But in the beginning, all it said was sustainable.
So Ricky, for accuracy of what you are looking for, Board Member Earl's would be a more accurate piece of sustainable practices rather than environmentally sustainable.
Correct. It keeps it broad.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm not going to vote for that amendment, which Board Member Straight made. Board Member Earl, do you have your question again?
I just wanted to, I wanted to make sure I understood that, because I think it becomes restrictive in this area instead of the broad usage of, and things that we haven't considered yet, right? So that I would be speaking against this too. Not that I didn't appreciate it, but.
No, we got it.
Yep.
We got it. Okay, so this is the amendment. Oh, hold on, I gotta try and decline that. The amendment is to construct an explanation. Let's just say we're going to take out justice and. Can we just do that? Because hopefully we're voting against it. I'm just kidding, I am. So we need everyone to vote, please, on this amendment.
Point of order, what are we voting on?
On the, okay, I'm going to read the whole thing, Chair.
Don't read the whole thing. No, you're just voting on striking the words
justice and.
Not voting on the whole thing, just that.
Okay, we're voting on striking justice and at the bottom. Okay. All right, is everyone there? Okay, please vote.
I'm a no.
Thank you. Okay, I'm thinking I have this, but I could be missing someone. I have 3 yes votes, Board Member Lear, Board Member Booth, and there's someone, and Board Member Huntsman. Everyone else is a no. Think I've got that accurate. Okay, so now we're back to the amendment, and the amendment is to strike out environmental justice and. Okay, please, does anyone have discussion to that? Please vote. Board Member Hanson. Oh, there it is. Came up. That is a unanimous vote. So now we're back to the original motion, which is, now, can you pull this up?
Vice Chair Belknap, I think you just need to state that, sorry. .2 be amended to read. And
But I don't think we have to vote on that yet until it's in the whole body of the vote. Is that correct, Lorraine? Now we're voting on the whole thing?
Yes, you've had two amendments, and now you can just vote on the motion as amended. So you could just say that you approve all those core standards.
Yes, so where is my original motion? Okay, so the motion before the board is the committee moves that the board approve the supplemental core standards as presented and amended.
Just scratch as presented. And say,
Okay, as amended. Okay, discussion to this motion, Board Member Hymas?
Yeah, I did have just a quick question for either the committee or staff. On the modern mathematics standards, it says that the teachers are allowed to select up to 5 objectives per semester, and there's a total of 15. And so that just got me thinking about end of year testing. At any given time, a teacher or a group of students could miss up to 5 objectives on end of year testing. Am I missing something here?
Yeah, probably. Okay, do we have our math specialist with us?
Hi, Board Member Belknap. I'm here. Lindsay Henderson.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi.
Hi. So this is not the secondary math testing space is kind of a bundled exam that's similar to like the ACT. It's not leveled by content areas, so that there's not a specific exam that's tied to modern mathematics.
Sorry.
Remember Hymas?
So we don't have to worry about students missing content because if I'm a math teacher, which I am, or I was anyway, and I like some objectives better than the others, and I focus on those objectives because I like them or I think they're more important, I'm not putting my students at risk for an end of year exam because I focus on one content area or content areas, subject specific, of course, within over another.
Yes, Ms. Henderson?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
If you'll note here, Board Member Hymas, prerequisite is the secondary math too, that's the tested piece. Okay, Board Member Earl?
I don't have any more amendments, but I do have, can I get from science, our science person, I have 2 just questions of interest, if that's okay?
Could your questions of interest, if they don't affect this, come on a sidebar?
Yep. Sounds
Because
great.
we're so behind.
Let's vote.
I'm not, Board Member Earl, I hope you're okay with that, are you? Okay, she must be since she disappeared.
You're wanting me to send them into them?
If that would be okay? Or you want them asked here?
One of them I would prefer was a public ask.
Okay, then let's finish this. Does it have to do with these standards?
Yes.
Does it have to do with these supplemental standards?
Yes, it does, but it won't. We can vote and then I can ask the question.
No, I think you should ask while we're in the middle of it, please.
Okay, my question has to do, a lot of the science standards seem to be a negative depiction of humanity or humans in general. And I'm just wondering, is there a particular reason, or is there, anyways, just in going through them, it just seemed like it was our impact, our negative impact, and yet humans have a lot of positive impact. I'm just wondering why there's a focus, if there's a specific reason why that focus seems to be prevalent throughout almost all the science standards.
Ricky, do you have a response to that?
Yeah. I think I'm going to need some more specific examples. I think there's lots of times where we talked about impact, but impact could also be a positive impact. Can you give me an example of where it says negative impact?
Well, I can, but I'd have to go back through them. So I'm sorry.
So that's where it's really tough. We try to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We try to make it really clear that humans have an impact, but however, sometimes that impact is positive and sometimes that impact is negative, and sometimes we then have to have another impact to affect the impact that we already had on the impact. And so the fact of the matter is there's cause and effect in this world. And so I don't think there's ever an intent that the science standards are written to be to be negative or hostile in any way. But
Okay. And maybe I can send on some of those specific ones to you. So thank you.
Board Member Earl, did you have something else you wanted to ask? I guess not, because her hand came down. All right, so the motion for the board is the committee moves that the board approve the supplemental core standards as amended. Please vote. I believe that the voting was unanimous. Vice Chair, did you see that? Okay. Yes, Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going back to you, Scott.
Hey, we are back in action with the motion for the board on 12.7. The motion is that the committee moves that the board approve the addition of the 9th condition, student health services, to the Utah Framework for School Safety.
So the motion for the board, the committee moves that the board approve the addition of the 9th condition, student health services, to the Utah Framework for School Safety. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, please vote. I see everyone has voted with one no vote. Board Member Klein.
That's
Thank
correct.
you. Scott, Chair Hansen.
Next is on 12.9. Motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board approves R277-404, requirements for assessments of student achievement, draft 2, on second and final reading.
Thank you. The committee moves that the board approve R277-404, requirements for assessments of student achievement, draft 2, on second and final reading. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, please vote. I believe the voting is unanimous. Thank you. Chair Hansen?
That's all, folks, from the Standards and Assessment Committee.
Well, are we going to let you do this again? Just kidding. All right.